Welcome friends, in this video we're going to learn how to create tables using scripts. Alright, so let me just put that down as a comment here. So creating a table to represent employees, for example. So stage number one is to begin by saying something like create table and then, for example, employees. Alright, put that down, the parentheses, and now you ask yourself, let's identify some characteristics that employees have. That's how we kind of decide on the fields that you should put in there. Obviously, we want to be able to identify each record. So we begin by typing ID as the, for example, ID of the record. Then we're going to put the integer data type. And then, because we want to use that to identify each record, we can type primary key. And lastly, in order to avoid having to input, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on by hand, we type identity 1, 1. Remember, this is the seed and the increment value. You've got the seed and the increment. So it begins at 1. Every time you add a new record, it grows by 1. That's the increment. And again, we can make that not null. Let's go to the next bit here. Now, I'm going to type name. And keep in mind that in real life, it's better if you have a first name and a last name, because it's easier to put things together than to disassemble them, disentangle them, especially when they're messy. But for our purposes, I'm just going to use name, that's all. Then I'm going to type varchar and then 50. Remember, this data type here is good for storing characters of a great variety of types, including ones from scripts, non-Latin scripts. So letters that have little marks above them or below them, or a completely different script. Okay? So this is a good one for accommodating it. Alright, and imagine it must be entered, so not null. Alright, now imagine we put in the start date. So I'm going to say here, between square brackets this time, date started. And again, because it's separated, I'm using square brackets to delimit it. I'm going to say date as the data type. That is the data type, date. And then I'm going to say not null. So the not null helps to enforce a basic rule. You want to have everything as complete as possible. And the date here is just another data type, just like varchar and integer. So the date obviously is designed for representing dates. And I'm going to say lastly, salary, money as the data type. And again, we want to know it, so not null. So we begin by making a simple structure to represent an employee, highlighted and executed. Commands completed successfully, that is good. Now on the left side in the Object Explorer, if you right click on tables and you refresh the view, you should see a table listed there, okay? Alright, so expand dbo.employees. The DBO is like the database owner. And if you scroll down, okay, expand the columns node, and you have everything set there, you see? And remember, because we made the ID the PK here, take a look, expand the indexes folder, and you've got an index set there already, clustered. If you look at the tooltip that is showing. If you need to, you just move it to the right a little more. Okay, so all of that is provided, perfect. At the next stage, we're going to figure out how to enter values. We could do that manually. We can also do it through a script. So I'm going to type insert into name of table. Just like that. Usually note that the blue writing means that it's some kind of keyword, has a specific meaning here. And you want to name the fields as meaningfully as possible, obviously. All right, so you know their meaning immediately. So insert into employees and now values. And that bit you do by typing it out. Now, remember that we have the identity set on the ID field, which means we don't have to worry about entering those values. So here, when I make my list of values to be stuck in, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can begin as follows. I can begin by, for example, saying John Smith. Okay, comma, and I specify the date started. All right, so again, between single quotes, you can type, for example, that. And lastly, the salary. Here you have some flexibility. Let's see, if I type it this way, whether it will work. I have 25,000 without anything around the 25,000. All right, let's give it a go. So hit execute, and it says one row affected. And of course, to view it, what do we do? Well, we select, say, star from employees. Okay, run that. And there you go. So the record has been added, and ID has been added automatically. All right, let's do this one more time. When you do it again, I'm just going to make up some information. Doesn't matter what it actually is. Say, Jose Felicias, comma. And you can also input the data a different way. You can use the getDate function. So you can type get date. So it's a function. You put the opening parentheses on the function and the closing one. You always want to make sure that when you're dealing with functions, you have the opening and the closing parentheses. So that is simply going to get the date today and stick it in for us automatically. So you don't have to code it by hand. And for the value, if you wanted to, let's see. If you try to put in 35,000 between single quotes, will that work? And the one above, you have to separate these with commas. So remember, this here essentially right here constitutes a single record. This constitutes another record. All right, so let's run it again. 2 rows affected, that's correct. And keep in mind that I'm entering this one twice, so do keep that in mind. All right, let's take a look inside. So select all from employees, execute. And there we are. And as you can see for Jose, the date is entered as 2017 month, which is October, that's 10, and the 15 is the day of the month. It's entered in that format. Now take a look very carefully also. Even though I typed the date as 10/12/2017, when it was inserted into the table, notice that it was put in a different format, 2017 10/12. So there's a kind of underlying formatting that takes place sometimes. So don't get thrown by that. It's still okay. And that pretty much completes this lesson. So what you may want to do, of course, is just enter one more record as a small exercise. Make up some information. And if you want to, as you're practicing, what do you do to get rid of a table so that you can practice again? Well, remember you can type drop table and then employees, as we've done before. And you know that effect. It simply gets rid of the table for you. All right, that is it. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.